Greetings. I am Tatwan Amaru, and I am here to give you another deaf term. Today's deaf term is the Yamato Code. The Yamato Code. And this is the blueprint for, I guess you can say, Japanese society. This is the blueprint of how Japanese think, act, and behave. It controls their attitudes, their opinions, and everything that stems from that. Okay. Instead of me trying to explain, let me share. I'm going to share my screen. And of course, this is another clip from the book 21st Century Japan Decoded. Okay. So let's have a look. Oh yeah, I gotta figure this out again. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Please bear with me. Okay, make it a little bigger. Okay, so you can see this is part 3 of the book. There's 4 parts, and this is the Yamato Code. A couple years ago, Sterling is the guy that I do the Real Talk forums with, good friend of mine and business partner as well. He and we traveled to New Zealand a couple years ago to visit one of his friends. And during that time, we had the pleasure of staying at a guy's house, this guy right here, David Lebernite. And guy had a very accomplished man, an older gentleman. He had a very, very nice property, and we stayed there for a couple nights. Well, anyway, we got to talking, and I'm going to read now. So it says, a world traveler writer who I had the pleasure of chopping it up with in New Zealand, David Lebernite, told me years ago he worked as a systems engineer in Tokyo. And during that time, he noticed Japanese tend to live by what he called a script. And I'm just saying preordained, right? While he explained his theory, a bell rang in my head as I realized he was describing what I call the Yamato Code. Okay. Now, if this is true, it suggests that anyone who has a copy of this script can literally predict how Japanese will react in any situation. Put another way, once you understand the Yamato Code, which is the framework which binds Japanese society, it is possible to implement this knowledge for your protection. Let me stop there. Again, 21st Century Japan Decoded is all about the mental health aspect for Black people living in Japan. Again, just to rehash, everyone knows about the high suicide rate in Japan. It's no secret. There's a lot of stress and pressure coming from somewhere within the society. This book is an attempt to explain this pressure so that Black people who live here can see it for themselves. And, in order to overcome a challenge or to even avoid a challenge, the first thing you have to be able to do is to identify what it is, where it's coming from, and then, and only then, can you make a credible decision as to what you should do. Okay, so back to the book. Again, mastering the code, the Yamato Code, so it will serve you, is challenging indeed. Okay, and the reasons for this are many, but perhaps heading the list is the tendency to take perceived instances of rude behavior personally, and as a result, becoming emotional. And that will go right into the example I'm going to give. And that's why I just, when I came on, I didn't realize I still was wearing this necktie today. I had to wear a necktie. I don't wear neckties very often, but today I had to. I had some appointments. I had some responsibilities, but it actually ties into the example. So please hold off on that. And while I get back to trying to explain this Yamato Code. So what is the Yamato Code? Okay, and first of all, Yamato. Yamato is, let me show you, it's one of the ancient names, you could say, for Japan. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna stop this share, and I'm gonna go in and share another part of my screen here. Okay. And you can see here, I'm talking about the definition of Yamato. Okay. If we go down here, it says the largest group of native Japanese were the Yamato, who lived in modern day Honshu. Honshu is the main island of Japan. For those who don't know, Japan is comprised of a series of islands. It's not one landmass. There's 5 main islands, and Honshu is the largest one. It's the one that encompasses both Tokyo and Osaka. And those are probably the 2 main areas that people are aware of. Okay. All right. So you can see here, and in the 6th century, they established an imperial court. Nara is I think the first recorded ancient capital of Japan, even before Kyoto. And it's the prefecture right next to Kyoto. Okay. And it's a good modeled after the Chinese court. Okay. And we know a lot of things in Japan, as well as all around Asia, is modeled after the Chinese culture. Okay. And then they talk about the character Yamato. Okay. There's another term called Yamato Damashi. And let me see if I can bring it back to my book. Where are we? Okay, here we go. Okay, and I talk about Yamato Damashi right here, right? It's the essence of being Japanese. If you refer to a woman being Yamato Damashi, that's going to be the woman who exhibits all of the physical, not only physical and even emotional and mental, the highest aspects of what Japanese consider the ideal woman. Okay. But Yamato Damashi, here they talk about it. Yamato Damashi basically means Japanese spirit, Japanese soul, or Yamato spirit, or even the old soul of Japan. Okay, these are all the accepted translations for it. Okay, here we can see the kanji characters for it. Okay, and it was coined during the Heian period to juxtapose Japanese cultural values against those of the Tang dynasty, which existed between these years, 618 to 907 AD. Okay, as well as, you know, trying to differentiate from the rest of the Asian continent. Just a minute, I have to take something off the stove. Okay. All right. Okay, excuse me, I'm over here cooking. I'm cooking some fish nabe. I'm going to have some people over here in a couple minutes. So I got to get this finished. All right. Okay, so there's a couple different translations for Yamato Damashi, and this one was the early one in the 20th century, the brave, daring, and indomitable spirit of Japanese people. Okay, and I go on and talk more about it, but that's kind of for the book. Okay, everyone knows that Japanese are very, very group oriented. Okay, I go into that right here, but what I really want to talk about is this lady, or a lady named Linda Bennett. She wrote an essay entitled Expectations for Japanese Children. And when I was trying to think about how I was going to explain this, I came across this online, and it was boom, on point. She's talking about school, what children, or how children are taught in school, what the basis of their teaching is. Okay, and it says here, right, she points out how Japanese kids learn from all aspects of society, family, school, community, and even the nation itself. Okay, and in it, she writes, a child learns the self-discipline and commitment expected to be a supportive and responsible group member. This is her quote. Okay, and as I continued to read this essay, I felt as though she was hinting at something which I discovered back in 2005 or 2005, which is the Japanese psyche has been programmed more like that of a soldier, a US soldier, I would say, than a normal civilian. So once again, this is an example of me staying in my lane, because I as some of you might know, I was a paratrooper in the United States Army for 3 years. So, and then not too long after, I ended up coming back to Japan. And so I instantly noticed the parallels. Okay. And so let's go down. Okay. So in this expectations for Japanese children, she talks about what they're learning, as I said, and I'm going to compare it to the 7 core values you can see here in the United States Army, which are loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. So each and every child in Japan is taught this in order to be a producing member in their society. Okay. And then I go in the book and I talk about, like, first, for example, the first one is loyalty. So you see I have loyalty here. And then I corresponded to shakaise. You can see the writing here. And that just means being socially conscious. Okay. And I go through each one of them. I'm not going to do that right now. Duty, you can see respect. Okay. Selfless service. You can see I have omoyari, and honor is meio in Japanese. Integrity refers to hansei, okay, which is self-discipline or self-reflection. Okay, so this is how Japanese people are taught in school by the society. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. And personal courage is the last one. Okay, so Ms. Bennett goes on to explain that each child is cared for by the whole society, and all Japanese adults are responsible for helping to teach the norms and customs of the society. For this reason, she claims they are members of a national family. So national family, again, and I say earlier in the book. So once again, her description perfectly describes the relationship between commissioned as well as non-commissioned officers with the lower enlisted personnel within the armed forces. Okay. I really want to explain just how this works. I talk about later in this same section about shame. Okay, let me go down, and I talk about, I think I call it saving face and shame. Okay, and these two aspects play a very important part as to how Japanese society is run. Now, once again, I'm not just explaining this just to be explaining it, but rather explaining how this, or understanding this, and being able to master and manipulate this is the key to maintaining your integrity, maintaining your peace of mind. Okay. Again, I go into shame, and maybe I'll go into that later in either a real talk form or into another def terms. But for now, let's just say that shame is how Japanese behavior is monitored. And actually, I will share my screen one more time to show I have a good quote in here about shame. And because, shame, the shame thing comes really from Confucius, right? Comes from, you can see here, I'm talking about in the 17th century, the Tokugawa shogunate, they encouraged Confucianism. Why? Due to its focus on morality and ethics. Okay, and one comes from this 12th century Confucian scholar, okay, Chu Si. I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly. And it says that, talks about his belief in unwavering loyalty and duty to one's parents and rulers. Okay. And okay, all right. And here, this is a very, very good, and this is actually from Confucius, Master Kong, otherwise known as Confucius. This is his quote. It says, "If you control people by punishment, they will avoid crime, but have no personal sense of shame. If you govern by means of virtue and control them with propriety, they will gain their own sense of shame and thus correct themselves." This is what Japanese culture depends on. Japanese feeling ashamed to be the nail sticking up. You can see here I'm talking about the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Most people are familiar with this, right? Deru kugi wa utareru, yeah? Okay, and it's societal pressure for people or for Japanese to conform to the established rule. This is the key. Okay, I don't want to make this too long. So just remember that it's about shame. It's not necessarily about right or wrong, but they do play in. So let me give you an example of how I made this work. Just a couple of days ago, actually, I went shopping, grocery shopping. This is a place where I go a couple times a month. These people, they're familiar with me. And I had another appointment, and I actually had a necktie on that day. And this actually means something because neckties, shirts and ties are very, very, they liked in Japan. Wearing a necktie or a shirt, necktie or jacket, for Japanese, that equates you with someone who has a job, number one, a credible, a person who contributes to the society. That's what they see. Okay. So in some consultations, I've told people, if you happen to wear a necktie one day for whatever reason, that would be a good day to walk around your neighborhood, go to the stores, and let them see you in this guise. And this actually has an effect on how they will treat you. Okay. All right. So let me go into this example of how this works, how I use the Yamato Code to defend myself. I'm in the store. I finished paying, or excuse me, I finished shopping, and I'm at the cash register now. The young lady, she was a younger lady, maybe in her late 20s. Maybe she was having a bad day. I don't know, but I know it had nothing to do with me personally. I mean, I've seen her before, but we've never had any interactions. So I get there and I greet her when the customer before me finishes, the social distancing. I walk up and I greet her as I always do, and I greet her and I say, Yoroshiku onegai shimasu, with this onegai shimasu. I'm very tired right now, which is just a formality that Japanese say, just, you're going to do something for me and I appreciate it. Okay. And the woman seemed to be going out of her way to ignore me. Like, it's one thing if you don't hear me or, you're not going to, but and I forgot to say something else. As an employee, if you're providing a service in Japan, you have to be on your utmost best behavior. I mean, I've been in restaurants with businessmen and they practically would have the waitress like get up and dance. I've had them make them sing happy birthday. And I'm not talking about in a restaurant where this is an established practice. These women didn't even know the words. They were happy birthday, and but the women felt compelled to appease the customer. Okay, so this is a big part of Japanese society. Okay, that I'm glad I didn't forget that. So this woman, now I'm back to the store. She is an employee. I am the customer. Okay. So I'm putting my groceries on. I greet her before that and she ignores me, doesn't look at me, looking pissed off. Okay. And I play it off. Okay. Whatever. I just want to get through this, get home. I got things to do. At the time I realized, or I thought that I didn't have a bag. So I went to ask her, yes, I need some plastic bags. You have to actually request bags nowadays. But right when I spoke to her, I realized that I didn't need them because I had a bag in the car and I could just take. Anyway, I didn't need it. I realized I didn't need it. But I had already spoken to her to ask her, and she was like still ignoring me and with a real nasty attitude, real salty. Again, I didn't do anything to warrant any of this. And so I went back to putting my groceries back onto the in front of her on the counter, and I was like, wait, no, this is all wrong. I mean, she is going out of her way to be rude and disrespectful, and it's not okay. I thought about it for a second, and that's important. I say this in the book because you have to choose your battles and think about what's going to happen. Because if you go in emotionally, as I said, if you're emotional and that emotion comes out in the wrong way, no matter whether even if you're 100% right, it's the people who are watching who are the judges, because they are the people who apply the shame. Okay. So keep that in mind, please. Okay. So once I decided like, no, this is not okay. I knew that I didn't want to get into a fussing contest with her. I just wanted to use the Yamato Code. I'm going to lean on the code. Okay. So again, the code stipulates, again, I'm the customer. So unless I'm just really, really out of pocket, she pretty much has to appease me now. Okay. Especially when the customer's not doing anything. So I went over to her and started talking to her again. I started saying something again, and she just kept ignoring me. So I was definitely on. Okay. So I went around, because they have a screen, right? A transparent plastic screen because of the COVID. I went around to the side of it. And I didn't yell it, but I said it very loudly. So I knew people in the store were going to hear it. And I said, tain sound is like staff. And I said it tain, really loud. And then I know that not only got her attention, but it got everyone's attention. So in other words, what's going on? And I said a couple things, but the only thing I made very clear was, you're being rude. And I said it in Japanese. And then I walked back around. You should have seen the change in her attitude. She instantly became the employee of the month. Now she's asking me, do you need bags? Because she heard me. Now no, I don't need bags. But she was confused because she had heard me already ask her. But I used that as another opportunity. And I just said very loudly in the same voice, not yelling, but very displeased. And I had a scowl on my face and everything. Like, this is not okay. But I wasn't acting out. I didn't get emotional. I just said that and let the code work. And this woman was speeding up, and now she was very polite. She's speaking in the most polite Japanese to me, like she is supposed to. So basically, with the exception of the raised emotion, and she was giving me the service that she was supposed to give me from the get-go. Now I don't know why she decided to look at me. I didn't see her having that problem with the okyakusan, the guest or the customer before me. I don't have enough evidence to say she was targeting me because I don't appear Japanese. However, I do suspect that. But the main point of what I'm trying to say is, when you understand the code and somebody comes against you or tries to disrespect you or anything, again, if you have to know what the code is to determine if they are off code. And if you know they're off code and it can be clearly illustrated, the only thing you have to do is do that, and don't do anything else. I didn't go into a long argument and try to tell her off or anything. No, I just let her know you're being rude, and that's all I had to do. And so after I finished paying for my groceries, and I made sure I said thank you to her, but I said it in a stern voice to make it clear I was not happy. So I leave the store. But for the rest of the time, until everyone who was in the store leaves, who witnessed this, she's going to feel that pressure. And I wouldn't be surprised, because it caused, somewhat of not a great ruckus, but enough, it was enough for people to be looking, that she wouldn't get a speaking, a talking to by her management, because Japanese don't play. Okay. So that's all I wanted to talk about, was the Yamato Code. And again, kind of illustrate what it is. And the main thing I want to say is, again, in Japan, it doesn't really pay to get emotional off code. You can get emotional on code, but again, in order to know if you're off code, if you're on code, and also if whoever or whatever's coming against you is off code and on code, you have to know what the code is. How can you do that? By getting 21st Century Japan Decoded when it is released. Okay, my name is Takuan Amaru for Deaf Terms, and I'm out. Oh, takuanamaru.com is the website. It's the same website as Gaikokujin the Story. I just added a domain name. Okay, so Takuan, Takuan, last name Amaru, AMARU.com. Get at me. Or if you have a question, takuanamaru@gmail. You know what it is. Okay. And that's it. Okay. Thank you very much. And please stay tuned for the book and for the next Deaf Terms episode. I am Takuan Amaru, and I am out. I'm hungry. Peace.